Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. This is the Group of 5 Deep Dive. We are hitting up Week 7 here in college football. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by my Action Network co-host, Duck. Last week, we basically treaded water, Duck, which is appropriate for your animal of choice, but we'd like to be more in the black and, get all the way home. We split on the underdog parlay. We split on our best bets. There was some heartbreak that I'll let you get into in a moment in terms of our 2-minute drill. But we're close. I feel like we're trending in the right direction, but we got to get over the hump. We got to get a few more sweat-free winners on the board. We're going to do everything we can this week. A beautiful collection of games to run through. That last week, I felt like I had to go through 2 or 3 times, rinse and repeat. Finally found some angles that I liked. This week, it was a little bit easier. I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but let's start by first wiping the slate clean with your sounding off segment. Take me through what really was memorable for you in week 6.
Well, I mean, we just see example after example of coaches not knowing how to handle situational football at the end of games. We saw it again last weekend with play that I gave out on the BBOC Saturday morning live show, which was actually featured on SportsCenter with SVP and Bad Beats. Morgan State football. If you haven't seen it, go watch the Week 6 Bad Beats as it gets referenced, part 2 of that show. But you look at Morgan State. They were up 24-21 with about 80 seconds left in the game against Georgetown. They secure a 4th down stop. They get a sack. All they have to do is run the clock out. They're running the clock out. Georgetown is using their timeouts. Clock is winding. It's 4th down and about 3. Morgan State appears to be confused about what they're going to try to run on the sidelines. They don't know what play to call. They have a timeout, and they elect not to use it to discuss what they could do. Instead, they run a play on 4th down, and they snap the ball with 10 seconds left on the play clock. They don't run the ball. They don't run a play to pick up the 1st down. They throw a 30-yard fade pass, which is a low percentage throw. Of course, they don't convert. And then Georgetown runs one play, and they're at the 50-yard line, and then they get mossed on the other side by Georgetown receiver who just makes a hell of a catch, and that burned anyone who bet Morgan State. We had the under, it lost. It was a crazy beat. It was just an insane happening. I can handle that. I can handle a bad beat. I can handle a losing weekend. But situationally, these coaches are paid so much money to be able to have their team prepared. And it was just inexcusable, I think, how it unfolded, and situationally how there was just no plan to attack that end of game situation. And we've seen it all over college football all season. So that's my sounding off.
Yeah, I wanted to wear this in solidarity with you, duck around and find out, because it was great to see you getting the shout out multiple times from Stanford Steve there on the program. So even in a loss, I think that's kind of a win here for the Group of 5 Deep Dive. From one tribute to another, as some of you know, 2 years ago to the day, my father lost his battle with cancer. And when I look back on it, I don't have any regret, any longing for more time with him. We were so close. We bonded over sports to such a degree that we made it a priority long before his diagnosis to basically go to these events in person. I watched games with him at the Big House, at the Shoe, Death Valley, Doak Campbell in Tallahassee, drank with him at the Grove before seeing a great game with Johnny Football winning a 4th quarter classic against the Rebels. All these great experiences. And I think the reminder for me is that if you have an opportunity, a best friend, a father, your buddies, and they're like, let's get together. Let's go to this place. Let's experience the atmosphere. Let's tailgate. Let's even just get together. Like on Saturday, I have 2 good buddies, these brothers who they both have kids now. We are clearing the schedule. We're getting babysitters. We're calling in some favors with the wives. I want to watch from 3:30 all the way to the end of the Hawaii game with them. I want to do it in person. And I think it's something that is phenomenal about sports. And I think sometimes we can take it for granted that you get to have these bonding moments. And that's what you look back on. That's certainly what I look back on with my father. In addition to, even when we weren't together, I'd always get that text, who we got tonight, who we sweating. And it's something that I miss, but when I look back on it, it's something that really warms my heart, because we were in it together. We were just enjoying sports at its purest through the gambling lens, granted. And I brought this up last year on the anniversary of his passing as well. And it dawned on me that most people obviously don't know my father, Cal. So I just want to share one quick story about him and how much he loved gambling. it was 1985, and he was in Philly, and it was the Nova Georgetown championship game, the classic, David versus Goliath. The Hoyas, I believe, closed as a 8.5 or 9 point favorite. And he was in downtown Philly with my mother, and he was at a bar, and there was like 6 or 7 Hoya grads there, and they were puffing out their chests. They're like, there is no way we are going to lose this game. They had some beer muscles. They were running their mouth. But instead of an altercation, my father did what he always did, which is he would basically smell and go, mint, mint, government, let's get that money up. Let's see what we can do about this. And all of a sudden, they're throwing around, you want 12 points? You want 13 points? One guy gave him 15 points with Villanova in that game. So he emptied his wallet. He told my mother at the time there was this brand new invention called a Mac machine, which was like the precursor to the ATM. Go to the Mac machine, get the max amount of money you can get, bring it back. They give it all to the bartender. He's holding it behind the bar for the winner after the game. And obviously one of the best no-sweat covers of all time. Nova wins the game outright. They shoot a crazy percentage from the floor. He's buying the whole bar of drinks, having a great time. And one other thing you need to know about my father is that he kind of had this Forrest Gump-like relationship with sporting moments. He was at Don Larson's perfect game in 1956 as a 7-year-old. He was at Derek Jeter's 3,000th hit. He was 3 rows behind Grant Hill when he threw the pass to Christian Laettner, and Duke hits that shot, and they win in one of the greatest college basketball games of all time. That was just kind of him. Whenever you went to a game with him, there was a chance of something special happening. Well, after his passing, we lay him to rest. About 2 months later, his headstone finally comes in, and I'm there paying my respects again. And I'm just walking through the graveyard, and who is buried, I shit you not, 25 feet from where he's buried? Raleigh Massimino, the head coach of Villanova. And I'll say this, if you have a great gambling victory and that person is connected to you somehow, and you're in the afterlife still cutting it up, having drinks, laughing about a great win, what's better than that in terms of like what more you could ask for as a life as a gambler? So I just want to share that. I think it's a good reminder of how positive sports gambling can be. I know that this at times can be a toxic community, but certainly with all the love that we've been getting this season, all the enthusiasm that Duck and I have for what we're doing on a weekly basis. Speaking of, on Friday, we're going to launch the weekend warm-up on YouTube, so you can go over there and follow us. I think it's going to be about 2 p.m. It hasn't been totally finalized. I'm going to be spamming out the links. Just look on our Twitter pages. I'm hoping that we can get as many of you guys there as we can. We're going to talk weather. We're going to talk injury updates. We're going to talk market movements, steam reports, all these things to help you get in a better position and have the most, up-to-date information live. You can also ask us questions. We're happy to cut it up with the community. The only reason that we have a job is because you guys listen and you're engaged. So we really appreciate you. And with that, I am going to now turn to our good friend Stuckey for a quick word from our sponsor before we get into our best bets.
The Big Bets on Campus podcast is sponsored by DraftKings, and in partnership with DraftKings, we'd like to announce the next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. That's right, new customers turn $5 into $200 if your bet wins, paid instantly in bonus bets. To get started, use promo code BBOC when signing up. Again, that's code BBOC to get on board. The crown is yours.
Thanks, Stuckey. One other note, we have a special promo for those of you who want to give Action Pro a chance this season. For just a limited time, you can get 33% off a monthly subscription. So for the price of a week, you get a month's worth of access. Get our NFL prop experts like Sean Kerner, Nick Giffen, all of their picks instantly, and it's always going to give them to you at the best number possible. Plus, with MLB playoff action on a nightly basis here in the fall, as well as college football in full swing, it is now a great time to get in on Action Pro, everything it has to offer, including real-time notifications when action experts track their picks. Head to actionnetwork.com/pro to get 33% off a monthly subscription. You can also tail some of the bets that we've discussed and will discuss in this episode and every episode with the quick slip link that will always be found in the podcast and video description, or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. And with that, Duck, it is time to get to our Week 7 card. We are going to start, as always, with our best bets, 2 each. You're going to start with, it was really a G5 darling at least 2 months ago. We knew that UTSA was going to take some lumps They had that opener against the Aggies. We figured they weren't going to win that game at College Station, but then they were going to get off the mat. And that hasn't necessarily materialized, but you like them laying double digits on Saturday. Walk me through why.
Yeah, we've seen UTSA's offense sputter the last couple of weeks away from home as the Roadrunners have just thrown up back-to-back offensive stinkers. They're not running tempo. Owen McCown has looked very average, completing just 60% of his passes with 200 yards per game and a 3-2 touchdown to interception ratio over the last 2 weeks. But really, the Roadrunners need to get off the mat here if they want to save their season and kind of get back into the thick of the race in the American Conference. I personally don't think that they're going to win it, but don't tell them that. They still host North Texas, they play games against North Texas, South Florida, and Tulane that are all coming down the pipe here for Meet Me. And they have a chance to kind of control their own destiny in the league with wins against those teams. So their mindset has to be that they can get off the mat, that they can get their season back on track, and really accomplish all of their preseason goals. Mal, it starts this week against a Rice team that's 130th in overall defensive explosiveness surrendered and 97th in defensive havoc earned. They have 0 sacks the last 2 weeks. UTSA should shred this defense behind an offensive line that's generating the first-ranked rush play explosiveness in the country and 17th-ranked rush EPA. Look no further than Robert Henry, 8.3 yards per carry with 7 touchdowns on the ground. Rice gives up a ton of rush explosivity, and the defensive line is starting to wear down after seeing 87 rush attempts against them the last 2 weeks. Offensively, Rice just has such little punch, as this team is absolutely dead last in FBS in offensive explosiveness and 133rd in EPA per play. They had 1 scoring drive and 7 points with 5 minutes left in the third quarter against FAU's defense at home. Now they're going on the road in the Alamo Dome, where the Roadrunners played really well during the Jeff Traylor tenure. This is just a desperate team that is still loaded with dynamite offensively. I think they get the ship pointed in the right direction here. I'm laying the 12.5 with UTSA.
Yeah, looking at last week, Robert Henry, a.k.a. Bobby Hank, he finally got bottled up for the first time. I'm not putting my money on that happening 2 weeks in a row, because when he gets rolling downhill, this offense is basically unstoppable. It's a pick your poison situation. If you want to load the box, you still have a veteran quarterback who can pick you apart. So the fundamentals of that play, I like it. I'm just a little bit worried in terms of what's going on inside their locker room when you have a team with such high expectations in the preseason. That's why I default to, do they have a veteran coach who's been through the wars before? They do. So in terms of tailing one, I'm right on the fence. I probably will lock it in with you as well. All right, let's turn to my first best bet here in week 7. Old Dominion, a team total over 34.5. Last week, I liked that Air Force team total, and I mentioned that the public was slow to adapt to just how explosive the Air Force attack was and how well balanced they were. Sarka was somebody who, from a national perspective, I don't think people were aware that he had the upside of throwing for 200 yards in a game. The secret's out there. But for some reason, the same is true that was of Air Force last week for Old Dominion here. Ricky Ronnie has never had a winning season, and maybe that stink is on this brand, and people assume that the bottom's going to fall out with this team. But just when you think like they've turned a corner in years past, usually they let you down. I don't think that that's the case this year. This year feels different. After a respectable cover against Indiana, 13-point loss, by the way, that's looking better by the minute, they've averaged 42 points per game, and they've reeled off 4 wins in a row, including beating down Virginia Tech so badly they fired Brent Pry afterwards. Last week against Coastal, they won by 40, their biggest blowout win as an FBS member. And Colton Joseph has taken the leap. There's no longer even a discussion. He is the G5 superstar quarterback. He's on pace for 3,000 through the air, 1,000 on the ground, with 40 total touchdowns. That's rarefied air. That's Colin Kaepernick at Nevada, dual threatery. I don't know if threatery is a word, but that's the kind of conversation and company that he's keeping. I'll ask this to you real quick before finishing my points on Old Dominion. Can you name another G5 quarterback to hit 3,000 through the air, 1,000 on the ground, and 40 touchdowns in a single season?
No.
Dan Lefevre, fire up chips,
yeah,
baby.
CMU.
It has been a minute.
2005.
When you look at Yeah, it's been a very long time since we've had this kind of dominance, and he's made it through the tricky part of his schedule. These Sun Belt teams and these defenses look petrified of what Kojo is going to be able to do down the stretch, because it's not just him. Old Dominion is second in explosiveness, third in points per opportunity. This offense is just elite across the board. And the question here against Marshall, can the Thundering Herd slow them down? I mean, their defense just gave up 54 points to Louisiana and dual threat Lunch Winfield. So I don't see any reason to believe that they can. I mean, he ran for 129 yards and three scores. So Kojo's going to destroy this defense. Marshall's 106th in tackling, 103rd in big play avoidance, and 116th in coverage grade. This defense has nowhere to hide. Give me over on Old Dominion. Even with a look ahead with James Madison right around the corner, maybe the defense takes their eye off the ball, but this offense is just too good across the board to be held down for 4 quarters. So I'll say that they hit 5 touchdowns. What are your thoughts on the elevated ceiling on the Monarchs this fall?
I love it. And a team that's completely laser focused, locked in, ready to go every week. They overcame some of the red zone woes of their game against Liberty and just absolutely destroyed Coastal Carolina, left absolutely no doubt in that one, which we talked about at the BBOC live show. If Old Dominion against the number here is a bet I have in pocket. I love Old Dominion this week. Marshall does not have the goods defensively to pin down this Old Dominion offense. I mean, they're just so electric and they can score from anywhere on the field. I want to see Old Dominion clean up the red zone. It was a little better last week, 7 attempts, 3 touchdowns, had to settle for 4 field goals, but if this team scores touchdowns in the red zone, I don't know that there's a team that can beat them. And Vegas is starting to catch on. They have now leapfrogged James Madison as the favorite to win the Sun Belt. So, man, it's going to be quite a game next weekend. But I do not think there's any sort of overlook here. This is a league game. This is a game Old Dominion's going to want to win. They're going to lay the hammer here. I think they cover the number, and they're going to put up a massive point total.
I try to pride myself on getting onto these bandwagons at least a couple weeks early in terms of a team being an against the spread darling or an offensive juggernaut or a team that's perfectly suited to muck it up. But I have to admit, with Louisiana Tech last year, I was waiting for the bottom to fall out for them to fire Sonny Cumbie. This offseason, I thought maybe they have a little something defensively, but I don't like their quarterback room. Like, this won't work. It's not just that I was wrong. It's that they've risen to the very top of a watered down Conference USA. But I don't think it's purely that CUSA is super watered down. I think this La Tech team has an identity. Defensively, they have an edge. They make it very difficult for you to finish off drives. Talk me through a little bit more why you love them here in a weekday Conference USA matchup.
Yeah, Thursday night going to Kennesaw State, laying the 6.5 with Louisiana Tech. I'm also a tad bit slow to the party here with the Texters, but they have completely improved their level of play on both sides of the ball, and they are very quietly, they've become the CUSA favorite here. This defensive bunch held LSU to 23 points and Southern Miss to 20 points. And then in conference play, the Bulldogs have blasted New Mexico State and UTEP in league play, and they've now had extra time to prepare for this one. Really, a lot of what's provoked the offensive outburst is they've made the change at quarterback with Blake Baker, and we've seen a more efficient passing game. We've seen the run game spark, but really this game is going to be won or lost with Louisiana Tech's defense. If you're Kennesaw State, I got a little warning for you. This is not Arkansas State or Middle Tennessee that you're lining up against this week. These boys from Ruston can play some football on defense, and they are going to shut this Kennesaw State offensive attack down. 7th nationally in defensive havoc achieved. Kennesaw State is 130th in offensive havoc against them this year. Louisiana Tech is 6th in defensive finishing drives. Kennesaw State is just 120th in offensive finishing drives. It's going to be a struggle to protect the quarterback. It's going to be a struggle for them to stack successful plays consistently on top of each other. And if Kennesaw does make it into the red zone, we've got Louisiana Tech's red zone numbers, which are exquisite this year. 7 of 11 trips have resulted in scores, but just 2 of those have been touchdowns all season, including the LSU game. Kennesaw State's offensive numbers in the red zone, just 8 touchdowns in 16 attempts. Could be really tricky if they do get into the scoring territory to try to punch it in. What this really equates to on average is you're going to look at Kennesaw State. They might get 2 or 3 red zone trips. You're going to have 1 touchdown. You're going to have a field goal. You're going to have a stopped on downs in there. And the Kennesaw State offensive attack is not explosive enough to overcome the lack of consistency. They did shred Arkansas State early in that one, but they went long stretches even against the Red Wolves where they could not move the football, almost gave that big lead up here. I look at Kennesaw State's defense. They have the third worst coverage grades, the worst pass rush, and the seventh worst special teams unit in the entire country. Louisiana Tech should control the second half here. They're going to limit explosives. I think they completely grind out a low-scoring, slow-burning game here, but I think they win this game by a couple of touchdowns. Anything under a touchdown is a substantial play here. Lay it with Louisiana Tech.
Mekhi Mason, the linebacker for La Tech. Ooh, baby. He is a game wrecker. 8 tackles for loss already on the season. He's somebody that if you don't account for him on every single play, he can hit your quarterback, take the ball away, blow up a running play. All of a sudden, you're behind the sticks. Kennesaw certainly cannot afford to be in situations second and third and long, because I think that's just when the Bulldogs are going to make them pay when the ball goes up in the air. Like that one a lot. And like I said, we're late to the party. The party's still going on. We can show up late with, a dip, bottle of champagne, something to kind of make up for the fact that we should have been singing their praises in August, but better late than never. It's October, and they're now the co-favorite to win CUSA with Western Kentucky. But I'm going to agree with Stuckey here. Talk about one of the luckiest teams in the country. Western Kentucky has overachieved vis-a-vis their yardage in games. When you look at their box scores, they should have some losses. They probably should have lost to Delaware on Friday. It was nice that they were able to cash that money line for me, but there was every opportunity, a fumble at the goal line by Minicucci. Just keep that in mind. I don't know necessarily if, the next couple weeks, I know they're off this week, but there's going to be some opportunities to fade Western. I think that's coming up around the bend. All right, for my second best bet here on the card in week 7, Louisiana catching a ton of points against James Madison in Harrisonburg, 18.5 to be precise. All right, let's start with this. Let's start on a lighter note. There's 2 elite nicknames, in my opinion, in G5 football right now. Kanzi Matsuzawa, also known as the Tokyo Toe, the place kicker for Hawaii, who has been integral to their success this year. He has been absolutely clutch. Every time that they get into field goal range, he's banging them home. And then there's Lunch Winfield, who I mentioned before. As a child, his grandfather was eating with him, and he turned his back. He looks back. All the wings are gone forever. The Lunch moniker sticks with him. This little kid just had a voracious appetite. But he's more than a name. He was a baller in the high school scene down in Louisiana. He had 3 P4 offers from UCF, Louisville, and Virginia, but he opted to stay close to home with a program that he could start earlier in his career. And here he is as a sophomore, seizing this opportunity. He has skills as a runner. He also, when you look forward to what you're going to see on Saturday, this Louisiana team identifies with that power run game. So putting him in there to already a deep backfield, I think that is a recipe for continued success, not just as a dog, but to win some games as an underdog outright this season. The Cajuns still really can block up front. They're 42nd in line yards. They're 9th in rush EPA. Zylan Perry and Bill Davis are powerful G5 runners. They have a lot of weight to them. They're not very tall, but they're certainly bowling balls rolling downhill. They've racked up nearly 2,700 career yards on the ground, and they've broken as a duo 33 tackles this year. So the line's blocking well, and when they get to the second level, they're breaking tackles. If you're adding in Lunch to this mix, somebody who can do the zone read, hit the play action game, I think that's really, in short order, risen the ceiling of this Cajun offense, which was looking like it was a lost season when Walker Howard got injured in the opener. A lot of JMU's run metrics, by the way, are strong, but their schedule has been a joke. Liberty found some success on the ground against them, but they had to abandon the run. They went to 3 different quarterbacks in that game. So in my estimation, UL, they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to have some big plays in the play action game, and there's little tape, if any, to prepare for exactly what Lunch is going to bring to the table. On the other side of things, you mentioned it, where Old Dominion has leapfrogged James Madison in the hierarchy to win the Sun Belt. It's because of this JMU passing attack. There's no rhythm. They've really struggled to protect Barnett, who, yes, his knee is good enough for him to play, but he doesn't have that decisiveness and that explosive first step that got him out of a lot of trouble last year. And I think the other element of it is 2 things have tanked for them year over year. Their quality drives and their big plays. They're hovering around 100th in both. That's not what I expected out of Bob Chesney and Dean Kennedy's offense. So you want to be, on the side getting over 3 scores in this game, because the explosiveness not being there it would just make me very uncomfortable to lay such a big number, needing so many methodical long drives to punch in points here. Their struggles, the look-ahead game that we mentioned earlier against ODU, and UL's ability to shrink this game down with the run, I'll take the points. Do you think this is the right side in the Sun Belt?
I do. You look at the preseason, and this would have been one of the premier games with Louisiana Lafayette projected to be a top player in the Sun Belt West. Didn't play out that way. And they were really in scramble mode because they just didn't have somebody in the backup role that was competent enough to run the offense and throw them out of situations. Well, they've now discovered upon Lunch, Winfield, and his talent, and the dual threat nature of what he's able to do on the ground, averaging 8 yards a carry and already has 3 rushing touchdowns in limited action, really just unlocks enough of this offense to be dangerous. Very similar in nature to what JMU wants to do on the ground when they get that ground game humming. JMU, the issue at hand is they've been so unsuccessful the last couple of weeks in early downs. They spend half the afternoon in third down, and they're not converting third down, even against poor defensive foes like Georgia Southern and Georgia State back to back. And so your empty possessions, you're punting back, you're playing in these closer games that are low scoring. The offense isn't getting it humming. The running backs have been hurt. This is just a major spot where I think JMU really has to be careful here. I'm not going to call for the Dukes to lose this game outright on the field, but this is a tough ask for them to win by 3 touchdowns when you have a massive foe looming. The one they really want to get is next week. It's a must-win next week against Old Dominion. I think the idea here is get this game into the double digits, get up by 10 in the second half, truncate this game down, grind the clock down, and get the hell out of there with a win. And so to lay 18.5, I could not do here. In fact, I have a play in pocket on Louisiana at plus 18.5. It's a bet I really like. I think they can do just enough defensively to provide some resistance to an offense that's been a little out of sync. And I think Lunch and the running game can do enough to possess the ball, stay on the field, keep this one a lower scoring game. I see this being about a 11 to 14 point win for JMU.
We created this next segment, the 4-minute drill, with games and moments like this in mind. North Texas in Denton on their home field hosting USF, a nationally ranked team. North Texas is undefeated. They're wearing the blackout jerseys. They got a sellout crowd. It is going to be a zoo. And I, for one, just can't wait to hear you break it down every angle. I have a play on it coming in the Moneyline portion of our program, but I just want to hear you wax poetic, go through the stats, go through the situational angles, go through the coaching staffs, because this game is one that we should cherish. We don't always get great opportunities like this to see best versus best in some of these larger conferences. I feel like there's always these revolving, musical chairs with who's in which conference, who's moving up, who's moving down. This one was circled. We were hopeful that both of these teams would overachieve. USF has certainly done their part, knocking off Florida and Boise early in the season to justify being a nationally ranked team. But if UNT wins this one, all of a sudden they're in the driver's seat in the American. And beyond that, to win the G5 bid to the 12-team college football playoff, the stakes couldn't be higher. Take me through it, Doc.
Major game, possibly the game of the year up to this point in the entire group of 5, with 2 very, very strong American teams. You look at South Florida, they do have the major strength of schedule advantage, having played in the Swamp and also at Miami. North Texas has not played that level of competition, but they've dispatched all of the teams that have been on their schedule up to this point. Many of these games have been convincing wins. North Texas has an immaculately improved defense. Skylar Cassidy, the DC, has completely turned around this defense, which is the Mean Green, 13th in defensive EPA per play this season, 23rd in defensive explosiveness surrendered, 15th in defensive finishing drives. The secondary is first in pass play EPA allowed, tops in FBS. This secondary is just, they're on you like peanut butter on bread. It is incredible to see how this pass defense has just been shutting teams down. 12th in pass play success rate, 5th in defensive pass explosiveness. Per PFF, North Texas has the second best overall defensive unit and is ranked number 1 in the conference in total tackling. South Florida is second from the bottom in tackling grades, and they're down towards the bottom as far as coverage as well. When you look at the pass coverage grades, again, North Texas first in conference, South Florida is 5th from the bottom. Then you talk about the quarterback. There was a battle for North Texas with quarterback. It was going to be Poffenbarger or Mestemaker, and so that had to sort itself out. And they went with Mestemaker, and people weren't sure if that was necessarily the right call, but he has been absolutely lights out this year. 11-0 touchdown to interception ratio. He's thrown for 1,247 yards, completing 68%, and he just does not make mistakes. Situationally, you look at North Texas relying on throwing the ball on third down, and even when you're squeezed down in the red zone, they've been excellent all season. 30 out of 31 red zone trips have resulted in scores with 25 touchdowns. Now, the concern for North Texas is, can they get pressure on Byram Brown and create some negative plays? We've seen this South Florida offense against two lesser foes in South Carolina State and Charlotte, teams that could get absolutely zero pressure on South Florida's quarterback, and they were just completely picked apart. Now, South Florida, you can be sure, has put their receivers on the jugs machine this week after 12 dropped passes against Charlotte last week. And if they don't drop those passes, that's 49-0 at half. And those receivers were running free. They were wide open. They do have explosive talent in the skill room. So that will be of concern. North Texas is going to have to send a little pressure, get creative with their blitz packages to just force Byram to move off the first and second read and move out of the pocket. You have a major, major special teams advantage for North Texas, both in the return game and the kicking game. North Texas is rock solid on special teams. And there's a scheduling advantage. North Texas has had 13 days to prepare for this one. South Florida comes in off the Friday game at home against Charlotte, had to be focused for that, and now they're on the road. I look at South Florida the last couple of weeks. They have absolutely feasted on two terrible defenses, which has made their offense look very good, very explosive. But they had gone through some times in the first three where there was long stretches of each of those games where their offense couldn't move the ball, couldn't get a first down. And while they played pretty quick in the tempo, a lot of those possessions ended up in punts. South Florida, this is going to be just one of those games where you're on the road in league play. The total has actually gone up as well. This came out about 55, 56 now, or 65 or 66. Now we're at 68.5. Something tells me this is more of a defensive game than what people might think. South Florida's defense can bring it and put a little resistance on North Texas's passing attack. North Texas's defense will do the same. You get this environment on Friday night in Denton, one of the biggest games in program history for North Texas. They're showing up for this one. If there's any game on the calendar they show up for all season, it's this one, to set the tone for the rest of the way and prove that they belong in the American. So I think North Texas can get the job done. Let's hear your take.
For my take, this will go right into our G5 underdog Moneyline Parlay presented by DraftKings. North Texas Moneyline. It's plus 100, plus 105. Make sure to head over to DraftKings to get the best price as soon as you can, because I have a feeling they may not be closing as the underdog here. I like Alex Golish. I think he's pumped a lot of energy into this program. His system, when it's all clicking, elite by G5 standards, no one's arguing with that. But I still have my concerns sometimes on the road with Byram Brown. This kid can be a tiny bit high variance. I'm going to throw out the Florida and Miami games. He played well enough at the Swamp to win, and then Miami totally neutralized him. But Miami's a top 5 team. I don't think that has any real bearing on this performance. But when you look at his career on the road, he's had multiple games where he's taken too many sacks, held onto the ball far too long. And in 2023, he had 4 multiple turnover performances all on the road. I bring this up because when you were listing off all those defensive metrics for UNT, Skylar Cassidy has exceeded every expectation. This kid had a wonderkin reputation. He was going to, essentially have this wild turnarounds with his 4-2-5 system. Even with like the rosiest glasses looking through, you figured, maybe they could be a team that could be middle class by American standards defensively. And if you paired it with a good offense, this would be a team that would go bowling 7 or 8 wins. But it has been incredible. I mean, no team has a better PFF tackling grade than UNT, and their 8th in coverage. You went through a lot of their back end continuity and what that's meant. And when you look at it, the offseason upgrades, it wasn't just let me grab the best player available and pay him some money to be a stopgap. He went ahead and brought Trey Fields at linebacker, David Fisher at corner from Sam Houston. And what that has done has allowed him to have sophistication in his defense with guys who are not suffering from, paralysis through analysis. They know what they're seeing, they know what to expect, and they're playing fast. You've heard Nick Saban talk about this a ton over the years. The reps are invaluable within the system because all of a sudden kids are just flying to the football. They're not worried about making a mistake or being out of position or out leveraged. They just know where to go. And because he has this sophistication with a veteran defense that on paper has so many transfers, you would think that doesn't lend itself to a veteran defense. Well, having so many who played for him, it does. And I agree. I trust Mestamaker to continue to protect the football this season. I think, when you look at what Morris has done, I know he comes from the air raid tree. I know we look up to Mike Leach. This is a Mike Leach offense in name only because he is more than happy to run the ball a lot. They have been surprisingly efficient on the ground. And Mestamaker, that's the thing. He hasn't gone berserk with passing yardage or passing touchdowns. He's just been incredibly efficient, and they get themselves into third and manageables. And the defense just doesn't know exactly what to expect. They're forcing them in a classic air raid attack to cover all 50-plus yards across the field. And then when you add in the running game, all of a sudden there's some big lanes for these small running backs to pop runs. So UNT, I think, is the side here. It's a sellout, as I mentioned. It's a blackout. It's a national TV game. I think if they can get some early success, this is going to be a hornet's nest for USF. And I'm going to bank on Byron Brown regressing to what he's done in the past, which is take too many negative plays on the road. So I'll take them at plus 100. What's nice about this Moneyline underdog parlay is that you're going with a big swing for the fences. When you put together yours and mine, it's going to pay close to 6-1. A reminder, head over to DraftKings to get the best possible number and the highest payout. Talk me through the MAC game that you have circled.
Yeah, I'm looking at Ball State on the money line, plus 245 on the road at Western Michigan. We just saw it take a little bit of time with the offensive scheme change with Mike Uremovich, who comes over from Butler. It was a major offensive overhaul, but the drives have been more productive for Ball State. And with the emergence of a competent passing attack from Kyle Kelly and this Ball State receiver group, it's really unlocked some more pop for Ball State's total offensive attack. We've seen the quarterback emergence with a much improved offensive output the last 3 weeks with 3 straight against the spread covers. And we've got the outright win last week against Ohio where Ball State was down 14-0 at half. It was a lot more competitive than that in the first half. They had a couple red zone turnovers, but Ball State completely shut the Bobs down in the second half defensively. And I am a complete firm believer that Ball State's going to keep this game airtight and very close. I already have a Ball State ticket against the number plus 8.5 in hand. Here's why I think Ball State can win this game. Western Michigan offensively is really struggling. Yeah, they were able to upset Toledo, but before that, everyone was ready to put this team right in the toilet. They hadn't scored hardly any points. They couldn't move the ball, and everyone just thought that the Lance Taylor experiment was kind of going south. It's not as bad as it may seem, but Western Michigan, they were in a 7-3 game with UMass deep into the third quarter. Their first 6 possessions against the Minutemen, fumble, punt, touchdown, missed field goal, punt, and they just had nothing going offensively. The Broncos are 131st in offensive success rate and 131st in finishing drives offensively, 113th in preventing havoc against them on offense. Well, Ball State has 15 sacks and 33 tackles for loss this season. They were able to get to Parker Navarro last week 4 times, and they're going to disrupt Brock Lowry in the Western Michigan offensive attack here. They have a superior D-line when lining up against Western Michigan's offensive line. And Ball State's run defense, they gave it up a little bit against UConn and Ohio, but it wasn't atrocious. This run defensive unit has improved week to week since facing Purdue and Auburn. They allowed 5 yards per carry against those 2 formidable offenses in UConn and Ohio, but the explosives weren't there. The back-breaking 25, 35-yard run plays were not there. And Western Michigan just doesn't have a lot of pop in the running back room. Their leading rusher is the quarterback, and even Jalen Buckley's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry on the ground and doesn't have a rushing score this season. You look at Western Michigan, they grade as the second worst run defense in the conference per PFF, and the rush offense is equally rated with Ball State. I think Ball State can create some plays with Kelly using his legs and get the running backs, get Quay Ashley involved in the running game. This game's going to be super tight. There's not nearly this much separation between these two. I think it comes down to a field goal either way, and I like how Ball State's been playing the last 3 weeks. I think Ball State's going to go in there and upset Western Michigan.
I'm not going to wait for my 2-minute drill because I want to tack this play on. I just pulled it up on DraftKings. If you tag on Ball State money line with the under, it pays out 5-1 over on DraftKings. And that's the way that I'm going to play it because, first of all, I like your rationale for why Ball State is a live dog here. But also, I have my doubts about this Western offense. But the Western defense, I think, has an argument that they're the class of the MAC. They've allowed 30 points in their last 3 games. They are top 35 both in pass rush and havoc generated. And they are elite in the red zone, which obviously is what you need to be able to cash it under. They've been bend but not break, 16th in red zone scoring, 28th in red zone touchdown percentage allowed, tossed in 9 takeaways on the season. I think this is going to be a rock fight. And I would love to get paid out huge. A 5-1 play can swing an entire weekend from heartache to, being deep in the black. So I think on top of the last piece of it is tempo for an under. Ball State is the second slowest team in the MAC, and Western runs just 67 plays per game, which is 82nd in the entire country. So if you're interested in the Cardinals to pull an upset, I think they do so in a low-scoring game. It's sitting there in the lower 40s. I believe the last time I looked at it was 43.5. I'd play that down to 42. I think this is one of those like 20-17 games. Hopefully you get the best of the Ball State special teams so you don't have any issues there in terms of missed opportunities when they are forced to kick. But if they execute there, I think they're absolutely a solid play from an underdog perspective. Speaking of the 2-minute drill, it is time for your FCS leans and plays. If you're listening, this is your time. Get your phone out, lock it in, because as soon as this podcast goes out to the feed, books are listening. There's going to be market movement. It's the reason why we're going to be talking every Friday moving forward on the weekend warm-up to be able to get you the best numbers, because Duck has a tendency to move these things 2 to 3 points, totals, sides, money lines. What you got for us?
Yeah, before I get into the 2-minute drill, just real quick, I am proud to say that we have had success on these FCS plays this season. There is no bigger influencer in the FCS market in America than Action Network. So you're going to want to get the Action Network app. You're going to want to have all of us at BBOC followed. We're going to get these plays put in later on in the week when they become widely available. That's a little feedback I've gotten from some of the loyal followers as they want the widely available lines. So we're going to get the best of the number here. We're going to really deep dive these plays, and this is going to be a lot of fun. But I've got 3 here for the 2-minute drill. There's no lines available yet, so these are just based on projections. First one, we're looking in the Ohio Valley Conference. Tennessee Tech is projected at minus 19.5 against Charleston Southern. I would lay up to 26.5 with the Golden Eagles. This is the best team in the Ohio Valley facing the worst team in the Ohio Valley. In this league, that disparity is closer to 7 touchdowns, not 3. Tennessee Tech averaging 56 points per game and 533 yards per game. Kekoa Vesperis is an electric playmaker at quarterback, 13-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 1,200 passing yards on the season. Tennessee Tech has 2 running backs that are each separately averaging 8 yards per carry on the ground, and each of them have 5 rushing scores. This is a superior offensive line going up against a Charleston Southern defensive line that has just 9 sacks and 24 tackles for loss in 6 games played this year. Tennessee Tech converting 53% on third down. Charleston Southern allows 55% on third down defensively, so we're going to have a lot of extended drives here for the Golden Eagles. Charleston Southern only converts 32% on third down, and their quarterback, Zoltan Osborne, is only completing 55% with 2 passing touchdowns over the course of the entire season and 4 interceptions. There's a massive, massive special teams edge here for Tennessee Tech. I fully expect multiple times the punt return game will set up short fields for the Golden Eagles. Charleston Southern is a heavily penalized bunch as well. 10 penalties per game on average. They are in major, major trouble here. Next one, we're going Presbyterian in the Pioneer Football League. Projected to be laying just 6.5 on the road at Butler. I'd lay up to 13.5 here. The Blue Hose are absolutely and unequivocally the best team in the Pioneer Football League by a wide margin. This team has 2 wins over the Scholarship League SoCon teams Mercer and Wofford this year, and they just destroyed Morehead State 41-0. last week. The offense is averaging 7.3 yards per play for the Blue Hose, 9.3 yards per pass, and almost 6 yards per carry on the ground. Zach Switzer at running back is electric, 8 yards per carry and 6 rushing touchdowns. And their quarterback, Colin Hurst, has a 15-4 touchdown to interception ratio. 9 different receivers for the Blue Hose have caught a touchdown pass this season. They have so many weapons offensively. Butler's not going to be able to keep up. They have a pretty salty defense for this level of football, and it'll be a test for a while, but Presbyterian's going to pass this test. Last one, we're going to the SWAC. Alabama A&M is hosting Mississippi Valley State. The total is projected at 57.5. I'd bet this up to 61.5. Mississippi Valley State on the road has lost their 2 road games this year, 56-3 and 59-3, and this defense is the worst in FCS football, allowing over 442 yards per game and 6.2 yards per play this season. The Delta Devils are giving up 68% completion percentage and 9.6 yards per pass. The defense, 15 out of 18 red zone trips have resulted in scores, with 13 of those being touchdowns, and this team has 1 sack on the season. Alabama A&M is going to shred this team. They're averaging 8 yards per pass attempt, but they're giving up 8 yards per pass attempt themselves. This team is yielding 51% on third downs, and 17 of 19 red zone trips against Alabama A&M have resulted in touchdowns. In 3 SWAC games this year, Alabama A&M has played to totals of 72, 75, and 81 total points. Listen, guys, the SWAC is bad football, but it can be entertaining and high scoring. This one will be. Take the high side here between Alabama A&M and Mississippi Valley State.
Mississippi Valley State, it's given me the Jones to start talking some college hoops. It's my favorite garbage segment, at least once a year, to talk a little SWAC basketball where the teams will shoot like 6 for 55 from three-point range. Quick trivia question for you. You didn't get the one earlier on Dan Lefevre, so I'll give you another one. Jerry Rice, the most famous Mississippi Valley State grad. How did he learn how to catch footballs so well at a young age? Do you know this one?
I know the story about how he was recruited to Mississippi Valley State, but I don't know where you're going here. No, I don't know the answer to this one.
His father was a bricklayer, and he used to throw the bricks like footballs to Jerry. There was no letting it hit your body, bouncing off situation. You got to snag those bricks with your hands, and he always attributed that to his sure-handedness throughout his career. All right, it is now time for my 2-minute offense. I'm going to start Southern Miss, a short favorite, laying 2.5 in Statesboro, taking on Georgia Southern. Cover your ears, Gata Nation. I am going with the Golden Eagles here. And hey, Stuckey, if you're listening, Southern Miss is good. I don't know what the vendetta is with them, with you, what beef it is. You should squash it because they lost to Mississippi State. They lost to La Tech. Mississippi State is an upset down the stretch away from being a bowl team in the SEC. They've exceeded expectations. They're a decent football team in a Power 4 league. Then you got La Tech. We just talked about them. They're now the favorite to win Conference USA. So losing by 10 there, squandered some opportunities. Those are their losses. Outside of that, USM thumped Jackson State and App State and Jacksonville State. Braylon Braxton is the quarterback that I thought he would be. He's got 12 total touchdowns against just 4 turnovers, 65% completions, a healthy ADOT. The letdown has been simple, and in terms of them being just a good, Sun Belt offense or one of the best ones, it's been the run game, even with him chipping in. Luckily, Georgia Southern has the worst run defense in America, 136 in defensive line yards, 135th in success rate on rushing plays, and 116th in tackling. Nothing is standing in the way of a big USM offensive performance here. They're going to win going away and cover this one. Now, the one matchup that I had here with a big caveat, I won't get too deep into it, Utah State as a short favorite on the islands against Hawaii. If Bryson Barnes is a go, play the Aggies. If not, it's a stay away from me. Barnes is going to overpower them in short yardage and goal-to-go scenarios. When you look at Hawaii, you can beat them up in the front 7 if you have some rugged running backs, or in this case, quarterbacks. I think they're the right side in this one. All right, hopping to another Mountain West game. San Jose State laying 2.5 in Laradice against the Wyoming Cowboys. I told you last week, San Jose State was one of the most slept-on teams in America. 1-3 start. Could have been a 3-1 start if they had a few bounces go their way. Well, they dropped nearly 500 total yards of offense on New Mexico in a game that was not as close as the final score indicated. There's 35-28 there, and I think we're the beneficiaries of it. I think if they had won rightfully so, by double digits. This would be closer to 7 than it is to the current number of 2.5. So I'm happy to take advantage of that. Walker Egan, by the way, has improved his QBR every single week this season, topped out at 92.7 out of 100 on Saturday. Wyoming is 114th in SP plus offensive ranking. They can't generate big plays through the air or on the ground. Their best weapon, by the way, is an undersized true freshman in Todd Harris, who has a bright future if they can start blocking it up in front of him. But he's only 170 pounds, and they have the 95th rated run blocking unit in front of him. No weather to save the Pokes here either. We had that crazy, weather with hail and snow last time. It's going to be sunny, low 60s. The wind's going to be blowing, as always, in Laramie, but it's going to be below that 15-mile-an-hour threshold. That's when it becomes too difficult to pass the football with regularity. And finally, going to close that out, as I mentioned, the under 43.5 between Western and Ball State, putting a bow on this episode. Oh, wait, we have a season tug-of-war that is back to midfield, Duck. I feel like just when one of us is pulling away a little bit, the other one comes back. Air Force almost pulls out the outright win over the Naval Academy. Roll Goats, but they're playing with fire there. We're going to go outside the G5. We went through with a fine-tooth comb this card over and over again. What's your thought on this game? I'll take that side. No, I'm also on that side. Let's just, relax the rules here a little bit. Let's have fun with a former G5 hero, Kirk Cignetti, traveling to Outson. I like Indiana to pull the upset. So what you're going to do for me is if IU wins outright, I'm going to get 25 yards, go from midfield to your 25. If you win, you're just going to get 10 yards to my 40. I'll give you the floor first on the Oregon Ducks. Why do you think this is the right side? With a Dan Lanning team, he's added a whole different dimension to chomping at the bit. He looks like a maniac. Maybe he's on some kind of performance enhancers, but he looks like he could have physically run through a brick wall after that Penn State upset. Talk me through why he's the right side here.
Well, this will be a fun game. It's a big prove-it game for Indiana. Something they haven't done under Cignetti during his tenure is prove it against these premier upper echelon teams. They were a tad sluggish last week in their first road game of the season at Iowa. Overall, I think Indiana's pretty buttoned up defensively, but they can give up some explosivity. And you look at Oregon's offensive line, their play has been superior all season, maybe tops in the country. They don't allow havoc or negative plays against them. They're excellent in early downs. And Indiana can give it up in the run game. So if you can't stop the run or get off the field on these guys, could be some major, major trouble. Mendoza is playing well at quarterback for Indiana, but you know what? So is Dante Moore. Really, really elevated his game since coming to Oregon. I just feel like this is it's the travel spot. It's you're playing up. I know that Cignetti has pulled all the right levers for the most part during his time here, but for me to want to get involved with Indiana, I really just kind of need to see it first. So this is a major prove-it spot. It's a major road test. If they win, then I'll tip my cap, but I just got to see it first.
Has there been a top 5 impressive road win that has fallen apart from a resume bullet point faster than Oregon beating Penn State?
No.
In recent memory, there isn't for me, because
historic
you look at
loss.
They score 17 points in Happy Valley against that Penn State defense in regulation. They have 374 total yards. UCLA turns around and they have 446 total yards and 42 points. And we learned that they basically put together their offensive game plan on the back of a cocktail napkin, and they had like one walkthrough to get it together. So I still think Oregon is the better team. They're at home. They have the better personnel. Quarterback-wise, though, this is where I'm going to hitch my wagon and take a shot for a big money line upset, because I think Mendoza in the system has a higher ceiling than Dante Moore. I'm not calling Dante Moore the dreaded game manager by any stretch. This kid has absolutely beat the brakes off of teams when he's given the opportunity, and he was able to create enough positive plays and move the chains against Penn State. You can't say anything but good things about him. But when you look at what Mendoza is doing, he's on pace for just an insane season. I think if you factor in the likelihood, or at least the chance, that they could play in the Big Ten title game, if they win this game, they'd have the inside track there. He would end with like mid-40s for total touchdowns. Like, he has gone nuts. And I understand that a lot of us in the gambling community were down on Illinois. We thought that they were overrated, flirting with being a top 10 team in the preseason. Like, people got ahead of themselves there. But they didn't just beat that team. They murdered that team. And I think what we're doing a little bit is moving the goalposts and saying the only two data points that matter are how they played Ohio State and how they played Notre Dame last year. Well, I think there's been a significant upgrade at quarterback. Curtis Rourke was a great kid. He ran the system, but I don't think that he had the absolute peak and the height that Mendoza has in terms of performance. And with that, I'll also look at what they bring to the table offensively. They are really well balanced. They have a deep backfield. They block it up well in the pass game and the run game. And this receiving core, I think potentially could get the best of some of the slot nickelback corners for Oregon. If they are able to protect him and give him time, I think they're going to be able to move the football. And then the pressure moves a little bit back to Dante Moore, who can he do it again? This is a big boy conference. It's the SEC. It's the Big Ten. Those are the ones that stand above the rest in college football. It's not just, hey, you had that one good game against Penn State on the road. You need to prove it, and this is a spot for him to do it. Not in the same way where everyone's saying, Indiana, you have to prove that you can beat a top 10 team and you're not just beating up the mid-tier bowl teams and worse. On the other side, I need to see more from Dante Moore. I mean, he's someone who certainly didn't do it at UCLA, and the narrative just 2 weeks ago was he potentially could be one of the things holding their offense back. So, as I mentioned, that Penn State data point, all of a sudden, it's not irrelevant, but I think you look at it in a completely different way. I think it's the reason why this number has been bet down from an open of 10 closer to 7.5. I think that's where the sharp money is going. I'm going to go a little bit extra aggressive here. If I'm going to get to your end zone at any point this season, if it's not going to be a stalemate, it's got to come from a big swing like this. And I promise to give you the opportunity to hit a big money line play the other way, but that's where we're going to go this week. Any closing thoughts on the card, yours or mine, for all of week 7?
I really love the card, and I think your 2-minute drill, you've got a bunch of plays that are going to get you to the window. I've made 3 of those bets myself. I'm really in love with the card this week. It's going to be a fun card that we get games on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And for everyone listening in, check Twitter, check the Action Network feeds. We're going to pump out some information about the live show. It's going to be Friday afternoon. We think it's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern time. I can't wait to talk. We're going to talk weather. We're going to talk line movements. At some point in time, we might be able to update our futures portfolio and talk about that a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun on the live show. And so really looking forward to everyone tuning in. It'll be interactive with the viewers. People will be able to ask questions and we'll be able to talk live about some of those things. So just really excited about the card, really excited about our second show. And let's have a weekend.
Yeah, we'll see if my weatherchannel.com swag bag gets here in time. I may have to save that for the second episode, but we're going to get into that Laramie weather. All of a sudden, if the prediction is 20-mile-an-hour winds, that changes the play for me. Maybe I have to work back from that. Bryson, for Bryson Barnes for Utah State, if he's cleared, I know that Bronco is waiting on a medical clearance there. That's the kind of stuff we're going to be able to give you so that there's more clarity in terms of all the fundamentals of the bets that we like, or potentially things that we find to be elements that should take a play and move it to the sideline. So all those things we're going to get to on Friday. That'll do it for today's episode of the Group of 5 Deep Dive under the Big Bets on Campus banner, presented by DraftKings. Thanks as always for tuning in. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. I've said it many times. I was going to go ahead and pick out a review. If you can bear with me for just a moment here. This one is going to go to Coach, is it Guggs? Am I pronouncing that right? G-U-G-S? We're going to go Coach Guggs66 over there on Twitter. I've been listening to you guys for God knows how many years. I absolutely love your insights on games. It allows me to find the edges I'm looking for. Well, Coach, me and Duck are going to give you a nice parlay, or that doesn't have to be a parlay. It can just be a future for college football. It can be an award, it can be a conference future, it can be college football playoff related, whatever you want it to be. What did we settle on, Duck? We're going to say $25. $25 for this one. So, Coach, come on down and
hit us up.
Appreciate you. This is a great opportunity to interact with our audience. I mean, anything short of doing an Oklahoma drill with you, Coach, we are up for it this season. Now, remember, if you want to tail some of the bets that we talked about in today's episode, look for the quick slip link in the episode description. You can also go to actionnetwork.com/bet. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, search for BBOC, and you'll be able to get all of our college football content there. You can also utilize the playbook functionality on X. So you're going to @playbook. You can take screenshots right out of the Action app and put it in there and say, hey, playbook, Build Me a Parlay. It's going to punch out those parlay options and comparison shop for you. It's amazing. Please go and try it out. And as always, check out our guy Stuckey on the favorites every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. He's doing yeoman's work, double duty, not just college football, but there on the favorites. He's doing the NFL every single week. You don't want to miss that. Thanks for listening to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.